This is Martin Blair with Making Home Happen. Today, my guest is Crystal Taylor with Heart Realty Group and Lifestyle Real Estate. If this is your first time joining in, you're in for a treat. So what we typically do is just ask a bunch of fun questions, get some candid responses, and just go from there. So, are you nervous at all?
No.
Awesome.
What's to be nervous about?
I've really tried to maintain an environment here where it's really relaxing. So, we're going to start off by asking, how long have you been in the business?
I've been in the business for 13 years, since 2010. And I have a Heart Realty Group over at Lifestyle Real Estate, and we do Central Kentucky.
So, in that 13 years, you've been with a couple of different real estate companies.
3 total. The longest was with Remax. I was there for about 6.5 years. Then I was at Keller Williams, where I was the production coach as well as an individual agent. And I was there for 3 years, and I've been at Lifestyle for 3.5 years.
Gotcha. I think I met you. You were at Remax.
I was.
Yep. And we've done all kinds of fun stuff over the years. Military veterans, teachers, a few different hero programs.
Firefighters, police, and I think a lot of government and state workers.
Yes, definitely. And every one has been memorable, and not it can be taken out of context. It's been fun, memorable, because everyone is unique, and I think to be able to really help folks get into the home has been, a great life's work, honestly. Because when I got into this industry, it was, am I just doing loans? Am I selling money? What am I doing? And then my very first deal ever was helping a family get into a house right around Christmas, and it really felt, hey, you know what, this matters, and that's what made me stick with this industry entirely.
And my motto is connecting hearts with homes, because it's not just a transaction. It's not just a deal. They're not just people. They're actually going to be your friends throughout the process of the transaction and on into the years when you stay, you're building that relationship with them. So it is connecting their hearts with the home. And I love that.
I agree. And actually, we've got a client right now we're working with who was referred to us from a previous client that we were working with. And I get random phone calls, like every so many days, because, right now they're planning on moving sometime in the next, few months. But I get a phone call just out of the blue, and he just starts talking, and he'll start telling me about, the folks that had referred him and the stories that they've got and how thankful they are that they're, working with us. And, what, sometimes those phone calls go 30, 40 minutes. They can go a couple hours. Once I was up till 10 o'clock at night, talking one night, and it was, it's just, it really does you well to know that you're making a difference.
Absolutely.
In a lot of what we're working with now, we're seeing a lot of challenges for first-time home buyers, especially in the past couple of years, and we've discussed it at length, a few different ways. So we're seeing prices go up, we're seeing rates go up, and we're not seeing much change from the first-time home buyer's ability, what they can bring to the table.
Right.
But we're seeing what they're going to have to start bringing to the table in order to become those first-time home buyers. So it's making it very challenging for us to still be able to deliver, what they're looking for.
Exactly.
And so in this podcast and what we do here is to really let folks get to know more about you, and that way they can kind of feel like they know you. And know what you're about. And it really kind of puts a lot of minds at ease on number one. And number two, it allows them to kind of develop the questions that they don't know they need to ask.
Right.
So from that, we're going to ask a few different questions just to kind of get rolling out of here. What made you get into real estate first?
Well, it's kind of an odd story, but I had bought my first house, and we bought it on a land contract. And I was in my early 20s. I didn't know anything about what to do, didn't know you needed a realtor. And we had actually was renting the home, and then the owner said we would like to sell it. So we were buying it. They said they land contract. We didn't know anything, so we went into the contract, and we were responsible for all of the repairs, all the maintenance on the house, everything, all the upkeep. And so about 10 years went by, and we just, kept paying. And I went to the owner and I said, we want to sell the home and we're going to upgrade to a new home. And when that happened, she just looked at me. She was like, oh, well, you've just been renting this whole time.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was like shocked. And it just like floored me. I was like, what in the world? And through it all, I learned a lot. And I learned that you do need a realtor. You do need a contract. You do need legal help with buying a home. And these things do happen to real good people, real people that are good people. And you don't know what you don't know. And that's why you do need an expert to help you. And so the next time I did get a realtor, and I thought about it, and I thought, I want to be a realtor to help people so they don't make the mistake that I made, or, with all of the processes of buying a home, because it's not just that you get a lender, look at a home, and buy it. There's a lot of things that happen in between. And so that's why I got in, just to really help people and, educate them on the processes of what's going to happen throughout the transaction.
Well, in your case, in land contracts, those are a whole other beast.
Mm-hmm.
But at least you were able to learn the lesson without it really costing you more than you thought. I mean, yes, there's money and upkeep, and there's the labor of love that you had gone through. But a lot of folks can go through this exercise and end up completely upside down, and not have been able to at least enjoy it while you had it,
Right.
So, yeah, that at least you learned early.
I learned early, and I learned what not to do and how to help people through the process. So, it taught me a lot, and I feel like that, now I'm equipped to really help people through the process, and I have a heart for people. So I really care about what they want and what their needs are. And sometimes I tell them, really, this is not a good avenue for you right now because of whatever, they're facing in their future or whatever, sometimes buying a home is not the right idea for you right now, even though you want it. Everything needs to match up and be maybe just doable for your situation.
Agreed. And there is a lot of, I think, coaching that goes along with this.
Yeah, there is.
So, from a perspective of being able to help folks buy a home or sell a home, which of the two is your favorite?
Well, I love them both, but I really like to help people sell and then purchase another home, just because there's so much joy and excitement in there. And I am a listing specialist, so that really, I love looking at the homes, giving ideas to the home seller, creating a customized marketing plan for that home to sell. But first time home buyers have my heart because, it's just like they're special. They don't know anything and they need everything.
Sometimes they don't know what they don't know. Sometimes you'd be surprised what you can learn. And I think that's sort of the challenge too, is that in the beginning, when you're dealing with a first-time home buyer, you have to sort of feel each other out because you don't know what they know and they don't know what to ask.
Well, you're creating like an avenue of trust. They have to trust you. You have to trust them. And I think a big part of it is the communication. We need to communicate through the process with one another. If you're not feeling good about a certain part of the process, then just be real and say, hey, I don't understand this, or I'm not comfortable with this, help me understand. So that comes from both parts, the buyer, the seller, and the realtor. It needs to come from all aspects of the process because we all need to be on the same page.
Are you noticing a change with the generations? Is the ability to communicate becoming a little more difficult?
Difficult. It is. And I think that is due to the the social media, the texting. Text is always so misconstrued. I mean, it seems like, you mean one thing, but it doesn't have a feeling. You know,
It's very
with
two-dimensional.
Yeah, and then when you talk to someone on the phone, they're like, "Oh, yeah, okay, now I understand," or "That was such a misunderstanding." And that's why I still like to talk on the phone or meet in person. Sit down and really get a feel for people, because that text, it's just dry and it has no feeling at all. But that's what our that's what people have come to. Oh, I'll just send them a text, but when they do that and it's quick and they leave out other certain parts that's important, then it's misconstrued, and it can become a real mess.
It can. And funny story. So my broker Tom, very straightforward, to the point. Love him to death. Been with him now for over a decade, and his emails can have tone in them. And you wouldn't think that they would have tone, but he can write with tone. And if you didn't know better, you'd almost think he was scolding you. And it could be something as simple as, "Hey, do you have a stamp I can put on this envelope?" And you almost want to be in tears bringing him that stamp. "I'm sorry." It's just that's his ability. And it's the exact same with some texting. Depending upon how quick the response is, or how direct and to the point it is, and how sharp it may seem, can definitely give you the wrong impression more often than not. So I see why emojis are so cool, but I don't think they have the full gambit of emojis figured out yet.
Exactly.
They're getting there.
Exactly.
Well, okay, so next question. I want to try to stump you, but I can't. I'm not going to be mean like that. So
Most people, they don't know about where the money comes from in real estate. So, do I have to pay my realtor as a first time buyer or as a buyer of any sort? Or they haven't bought in a long time. So, no, you don't pay your realtor as a buyer. The seller actually writes that into their contract with their listing realtor, and they pay the buyer's realtor. And so you don't have to come out of pocket anything for your representation of your realtor.
Gotcha.
It's already created into the contract that they signed with the listing agent.
Gotcha. Now, to that point, for first-time home buyers, this is a very good point. I have, however, in my years, have seen where the buyer does have to, but it's very, very rare.
Yes,
And that rarity usually comes when we're dealing with for sale by owners.
Yeah.
Yep. But we would be surprised at how often your negotiating skills have still been able to save the day, so that the buyer still doesn't have to pay.
Exactly. I've never had a buyer that ever bought from a for sale by owner that had to pay my commission. I always negotiated that in, even before we went. So there's a contract that I work out with the for sale by owner that actually has that written in there, that they will pay me my commission, so that I can go in and not have to pass that along to the buyer.
There you go. So what this essentially is creating is a larger market than what most folks would be able to see normally, because not only are they getting what's currently listed on MLS, they're also getting the for sale by owners as well.
Right.
And in this market especially, we need as many homes out there as we can get to.
Absolutely.
Because
we're low in inventory.
hugely low. Hugely low, is that a phrase?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely, we're low in inventory. I think we're down 13% right now from last year on the listings. Yeah, just from last year. And we were low inventory last year as well, and the year before that. So, and that drove up the prices of the houses. And with that, coupled with the interest rate going up, it has really made an impact on the buyers. And it's also made an impact on the people wanting to sell, because they're moving up, and the interest rate, unless they're paying cash, is going to affect their leverage in the market, if that makes sense.
It does. I don't recall, or can't recall right now, a time ever when I heard a realtor say there's too many houses on the market. We're just flooded with houses. Too many. Stop selling your houses. But I have seen and have documented proof to show we are going down and down and down and down and down in inventory year over year over year.
We are.
And a lot of that is in part to the interest rate, lows that we had during the COVID years, and people were refinancing into the 2s and 3s, and essentially free money, really.
Yeah.
So if you had a 2 or 3%, interest rate on your house, would you want to sell it?
No, and I do. I have a 2.65 on my home on a 20. And no, I don't want to sell. And I know that it's hard, but there's going to be times when people are relocating or they have new babies. They've outgrown their families, outgrown their current home, and so they have no other choice, and they have to. But when I work with you, as their lender, then we always think of, we could buy down the interest rates, and those really help. They help you be able to afford more house. So we work together to try to find a customized plan for that family. And every family is different, and we do customize every family's plan.
Mm-hmm. We do. And here's something that's really neat. There is a program out there called a 2-1 buy down. Now, it can be misconstrued very easily as into saying, it's all hype. But here's something I have found, and I've actually seen a scenario very recently, as in last week even, where this would actually benefit a buyer. Okay, so number one, the seller doesn't want to come down on their price. They just don't want to come down, and they think that starts a bad pattern. So we've got a buyer who wants to buy this house, but they don't want to get out from under their really great interest rate that they've got now. Right. So we've got this, battle of wills. Well, with a 2-1 buy down, they were able to come back to the seller and say, look, okay, I don't want you to necessarily lower your price, but seller paid interest buy down is essentially what they're doing. And they will buy down the interest rate 2 points for 2 years, and then best way to describe it. On your first year, you're 2 points lower than your initial rate. The next year, you're 1 point lower than your initial rate. And then on your third year, you're at your initial rate. Right. Okay. So what the seller can do is at least incentivize the initial lower interest rate. And what that does is kind of buy you some time that if interest rates were to lower, you can refinance. Exactly. And, what's the worst that can happen? At least you're adjusting slowly. And it's not the same as an ARM that can adjust year over year over year. It is, you got a 2 or 3 year max adjustment period, and then you're done. That's it. So it is an option that we've looked at, and I have been able to assist, alleviating, I guess, if you will, the brick walls from the seller and the buyer to say, hey, we have a option that makes it, kind of, mutually beneficial for both parties here.
But the thing about it is rent has gone up, and it seems like more times than not, more expensive to rent than it is to buy, even with the interest rates at 6 and 7%. And 100% of your rent is going straight to the property owner. But portions of your payment is going towards buying you wealth, paying that home off. And so when you think about it that way, you are at a win-win always with buying because you're building wealth. But, a lot of people don't see that, and it intimidates them. So we actually sit down and we have an hour to an hour and a half long meeting to go over things like that and questions and concerns about the process and what it entails, and, what is the win or the lose or the win-win, what's that going to look like? And, I'll look at what their rent payment is. We'll get them, pre-approved with the lender, which would be Martin Blair, and see what they can qualify for. And if they qualify for a certain amount, we look at their payment, what that'll be, and, you balance that out. What's it going to be here? Like if it was $2,000 in rent and it's going to be $2,170 for your mortgage payment, it's a win-win to go ahead and go through with that mortgage because you're always going to be building wealth in that home. But with your renting, you're always going to be giving 100% of that rent to that homeowner. To your landlord. Right. Yeah. 100% compared to 6 or 7%. Right. So when you take that out of your mind and you start really focusing on what that looks like, and you're in your 20s or your 30s and it's going to be your first house, then you're going to look at you are actually building equity in that home. And if something ever happened, you could sell the home and still have money there.
From a perspective of expertise, is there any expertise that you have, trained or studied toward?
I have the military relocation professional specialist. So I do help with the military, and I know all of the processes to make that VA loan happen. Um, I actually sell, like this year, I've sold farms, I've sold condos, lake houses, duplexes, commercial buildings, all this year. So, really, I keep my range open because I want to help everybody. And I have the expertise to do that through my 13 years' experience, but actually specializing military. Mm-hmm.
Military, got it. So here's your question. What is your take on teams?
Well, I do have a team. It's just a small team. And my team concept is more about helping people grow. So, new realtors, I just want to help them grow into being eventually a individual realtor. That's the way that I have my team set up. So it's not just a like 50-50 split that I do with another agent, and I just don't even help or don't offer anything. Um, I love to offer education, and I like to take them in under my wing and grow them and help them become an individual agent. Most team concepts are really not like that, and you're going to be bound by what that team wants for their actual vision. But my actual vision is just to help new realtors grow.
So it's more of a nurturing team
It
environment.
is for me.
So we had mentioned that things are kind of going toward the rental side of things. Have you noticed an uptick in folks that are looking for homes that they can purchase to become rentals or Airbnbs, or are you still seeing it more for their primary residence?
I really have seen a lot of people want to buy like duplexes, live on one side and rent the other side out to help with their mortgage. And there's not a lot of duplexes on the market, but that seems like to be one of the things that is really needed. It makes housing more affordable.
I guess more specifically is, are you seeing folks that are wanting to buy more investment property in general, or are you seeing folks that just want to buy a house for themselves and more in general?
Just want to buy a house for themselves.
Okay. So, question here, looking back on your career, what piece of advice would you love to go back in time and give it to yourself?
Take more time with your education, learning from other realtors that have done it for many years and they know the ropes. You don't know everything just because you just came out of school. You don't know really much, and you think you do. You think you're prepared. So, taking time to really learn from experienced realtors, asking them out to lunch to be able to pick their brain and learn what they did and how they built their business. Really becoming more people oriented and relationship building.
Right.
That's what I would do different. I did a little bit of that, but really not enough. So if you don't do enough of it, it takes longer for you to actually build your business and build relationships.
I agree. And see, that's the funny thing about education and experience, and you don't know the right way to go about absorbing that information without just good old-fashioned trial and error. And sometimes it hurts. You take a lick and you're okay, learn from that one. And then you can be graciously given expert advice and not realize it for the value that it is. So it's being able to be, I think, open to all the different perspectives.
There's things that's going to be really close to your heart that you really like to do in real estate. like mine's military. I love that. I love working with people that are working for our country. So it's really close to my heart. And there's going to be a certain thing that you like, and you get into that. Maybe you like to work with people in education. So it all just depends on what you like. You take your time to find out what that is. So, really taking time and diving into it and making a difference in your life, but in people's life.
I agree with that. I agree with that very, very much. How would you advise someone that's thinking about becoming a realtor?
Take a step back and actually don't just dive into real estate school. Go in and talk with a broker and meet with some agents and find the cost out first of all, because it's not cheap. I mean, it's an investment, but it's not cheap, and it's time consuming. You work when people are off work, so you're working nights and weekends. You're working open houses on Sundays and Saturdays and Thursdays, and you will take away from your family if you have a family, if you don't know how to actually, make a plan for your life, make a schedule. So you really do need to sit down with a broker, sit down with a couple of agents, find out the costs, and find out what a day in the life of a realtor really looks like.
I agree. And I would even take it a step further to say, once you get that information, you need to take that home and have a family meeting or two or three, and make sure that it's a good fit.
Make sure everybody is on board, because you sacrifice a lot in real estate, and especially in the beginning when you don't have clientele built up, when you don't have those relationships yet, and you're spending 70 hours a week working in real estate. So, now I can spend 30 hours a week and make more than I did when I spent 70, because I've lived and I've learned what works, in this business, and how to actually, I guess, make a plan and a vision and a calendar and stick to all of that.
Yep, I agree. So a lot of that beginning grind is to get caught up on the experience. And, experience is expensive. And you're going to pay for it one way or another, whether it be in actual dollars or time spent or bruises gained. You're going to get there through the effort. And you have to make sure that the effort is individualized and it's worth it. Thank you for joining me on Making Home Happen. And thanks to our listeners for making this possible. We'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks again, and see you next time.